All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6 o'clock, so we will now call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Mayor Holland.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Brownlow. Commissioner Sanders.
Here.
Commissioner Sawyer.
Here.
Commissioner Wooten.
Here. Thank you. Please bow your heads with me in prayer. Lord, we thank you once again for all the many blessings we receive. Please be with us tonight, tomorrow, and always. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please face our flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to
Welcome to the
republic
October
for which it
Public Service
stands,
announcements.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 5 would be public comment. If you signed up on the way in, we'll call your names in that order for 3 minutes public comment. If you missed the sign-up sheet or if you have a thought, we'll raise your hand at the end and get you up there. So that being said, we'll call our first speaker.
Sarah Fullwood.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Sarah Fullwood at 126 Ethel Drive. The laurel wilt disease that is impacting the native bay trees on the island is, I'm sure, very apparent to everyone here. I first heard about the disease in April after the electric company's arborist stopped by our house and told us that we were going to lose all of the bay trees on our property, some of which are 80 to 100 years old. Like the Forestry Service link in the town newsletter, he said that there was no cure, but he mentioned a preventative fungicide that has been successful in saving some bay trees in impacted areas. The rich maritime forest on Emerald Isle is one of its greatest facets and one of our greatest protections for weather impacts. So I Googled the disease to try and better understand what was happening. The preventative fungicide is called Alamo and is distributed by a company called Rainbow Ecoscience. Our county extension office put me in touch with the disease division of the North Carolina Forestry Service in Raleigh. I spoke with one of the forestry disease experts, Mr. Jim Sly. Mr. Sly said that the Forestry Service first notified municipalities in Carteret County of the presence of laurel wilt in 2018. So I know the start of this issue predates most of this board and many of the town staff. He said that they have had a lot of success with Alamo in protecting bay trees from laurel wilt. The chemical must be applied before the tree is infected or very early in the disease process in order to be effective. And the chemical must be reapplied every 12 to 18 months. Mr. Sly did say it is not feasible to treat an entire forest due to the cost and time involved, but that it is a viable option for protecting a percentage of the species in impacted areas. He also said that grant money could potentially be available to help put a program in place in municipalities to help protect key bay trees. The system for applying Alamo is called macro injection. Mr. Sly put me in touch with the Forestry Service's contact at Rainbow Ecoscience. His name is Andrew Hallett. He said that he did not have anyone east of Raleigh that provided macro injection services. However, the following are the only requirements for the process: the injection system at a cost of $490 each, a cordless drill, the chemical Alamo, which costs $70 a quart, a pesticide license, which he thought most municipal public works maintained, and knowledge of how to inject the chemical without damaging the tree. Mr. Sly at the Forestry Department said that he would be happy to come and provide information on how to do the injections if any local municipalities were interested in starting a bay tree protection program for trees on public and/or private land. Mr. Hallett said the process can be labor intensive for very large trees with a trunk circumference of more than 40 inches, but most bay trees are smaller than that. 1 quart of Alamo can treat approximately 3 trees with a trunk circumference of 20 inches. The board may have already considered this information and determined it not feasible, but I wanted to pass it along. If the town did determine this is not a feasible option for protecting our bay trees, would you be able to explain the reasons why? And if the town is unable to establish a bay tree protection program, would you be willing to spearhead this with a local lawn service or the garden club in order to protect our precious bays? I'm not sure if there are many left on the island, but I hope we can save at least a few of this important native species since it costs so little. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Valerie Perry.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Valerie Perry, and I live at 8804 Edgewater Court. 17 EI residents spoke at last month's meeting and respectfully requested that the board establish a Parks and Rec committee. This is more people speaking at a meeting on a specific topic than any other issue in the last year, if memory serves me correctly. There were fewer people who spoke regarding stormwater runoff, and a committee was formed to review that important issue. There were fewer people who spoke even when you combine those in favor of and against regarding food trucks, and you put together a special group to look at that satellite business issue. When 3 members of the community spoke out against providing city employees with a holiday on their birthdays, this board tabled that initiative. We encourage you to recognize the relevance of 17 residents taking time to speak on a specific issue and the necessity of having greater community involvement in our Parks and Rec resources are utilized. Based on the agenda I saw on the app for tonight, the court scheduling app has no bearing on this decision. I will also publicly address some incorrect statements the board made regarding the group of residents that spoke at the last meeting. A board member indicated that this was only about pickleball and the group had no idea the scope of the Parks and Rec responsibilities. This is categorically false. Members of this group are avid kayakers, fishermen, runners, and cyclists. Members use and have used the rec center resources like the gym, fitness classes, child care programs, playgrounds, and other activities. We use the various trail systems and other smaller resources like this golf course, and we appreciate and understand the complexities of the various events supported by Parks and Rec, like the concert series, marathon, etc. A board member also indicated that the pickleball club and community has offered only criticism while offering no solutions. This is also categorically untrue. Perhaps the board is unaware, but the members of the pickleball club purchased a net valued at $1,200 and provided it to the town to use as a proof of concept when the town had concerns about nets being stolen. The net is still in use on the town's public courts, and the town staff found it to be a viable option. As a court scheduling solution, we recommended that the court utilization data previously compiled by Parks and Rec be used to allocate the availability of courts for tennis and pickleball. Utilization data is used in most Parks and Rec organizations for everything from programming to equipment purchase and from facility scheduling to labor allocations. Town staff indicated that this Board of Commissioners had no interest in seeing any utilization data or using it as a resource to fairly distribute court space or playing time between tennis and pickleball. If true, the board's unwillingness to utilize factual data in the allocation of resources is troubling on many levels. Finally, the pickleball club has worked diligently to be a positive force for good in the community. We have been extremely respectful of this board and of town staff and have made visitors and locals feel welcome at all our open play opportunities. We have previously asked the town to facilitate meetings between the tennis and pickleball communities, and those requests were never followed through with by the board. The aggressive comments solicited by the board on behalf of the tennis community at the end of last month's meeting were unfortunate, unnecessary, unappreciated, and unwarranted. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's it.
Okay, there were no others on the sign-up sheet. Does anyone else wish to participate in public comment? All right. Thank you both for speaking. Item number 6 would be that we heard you follow-ups to prior comments. I do believe, like you said, we had 17. I have a copy on my desk. I'm happy to share with anyone else that's interested. We do not have copies on the desk as I thought we did. Not a problem though if you'll reach out to admin if you want a written. I'm not going to read them all to you. I don't want to waste your time there. They are available if you reach out to our admin office. Yes. Okay, we're going to make some copies while you're here, so if you want to grab one on the way out, that way you don't have to make that phone call. So follow-ups done, and we'll have a printed copy here shortly. Item number 7 would be the adoption of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Commissioner Sawyer makes the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion is carried. Of our proclamations and public announcements, I think everybody in the room will agree that the solid waste company Simmons & Simmons that we have here are as good as they come. They're as good as gold, and the men and women that run that company and work for that company make it what it is. On October 1st, 2024, Simmons & Simmons and the Thomas family had a tragic loss of James Bubba Thomas Sr. glasses, long beard, hat. You've seen him. He was all around. He was a super great guy. But Bubba was born on August 7th, 1970 in Morehead City and passed away September 25th, 2024. Bubba appreciated the simple pleasures of life and found much joy in singing karaoke. His enthusiasm for playing sports video games reflected his competitive spirit, particularly as a loyal fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a connoisseur of collecting trinkets, and he lived by the motto, "One man's trash is another man's treasure." Bubba's going to be sorely missed. His service was held October 5th at Amariah Garner Cemetery in Newport. I'd like to show our respects to Bubba and the entire Thomas family with a moment of silence, please. All right, I thank you. Hearts go out to the Thomas family. We're praying with you and grieving your loss. He was a good man. All right, moving on, we will have new full-time employee introduction. Is that part of our public or announcements, or are you going to field that for us? Which one? Oh. Floor is yours.
Yes, sir. We would want to welcome Tony Sermarini back to full-time employment. So Tony has been employed with us full-time as a paramedic in the EMT division, fire services. He opted to retire for a short period, then he came back part-time, and we wanted to recognize that Tony's been helping us at the front line at Town Hall for quite a few months now, and I don't know if we were so exciting that we brought him back in full-time, but we had over 100 applicants apply for that full-time administrative support role for planning, and Tony has opted to come back out of retirement and assist us. When you speak about Simmons & Simmons, you talk about a question or a concern. Tony lives on the island, familiar with all the streets on the island, has worked them for years. So when somebody's calling the front line, he's been able to balance quite a bit and is a great resource on customer service for us. So Mayor and Board, we want to make sure that everyone's aware that Tony's back with us on a full-time status.
Thank you, sir, and welcome back, Tony. All right, 8C, recent storm damage from PTC number 8. Moffitt, Nickel, and Mr. Zapp, are you going to field down, or we still have Moffitt, Nickel with us?
Moffitt and Nickel will be here to help us. I think both Nicole and Johnny, but I think Nicole Vanderbeek is going to be our speaker on this particular subject.
Perfect.
And for those of you that have either participated or watched a shoreline protection meeting, Nicole is not she's been at this podium many a time, and she's our technical expert when it comes to beach and sand. So we want to welcome Nicole and thank her.
Okay, as Matt said, my name's Nicole Vanderbeck. I work with Moffitt and Nickel. We've been working with Emerald Isle for a very long time, as well as with the County Shore Protection Office. I was here a couple weeks ago at the Beach Commission meeting presenting the annual monitoring. And as we were preparing that, potential tropical cyclone 8 came through, and we were contacted by Matt, just wondering if there was any way we could quantify the impacts to the beach and potentially receive some funding. So we went ahead and started looking into this. Fortunately, Emerald Isle had some great drone footage, and we coordinated with the Carteret County Shore Protection Office to look at some other areas. But basically, as everybody knows, middle of September, an unnamed storm formed really quickly out in the ocean and did a lot of damage to the beaches. I'm sure everybody's seen all the escarpments. We went and looked at water levels. I think, as everybody probably knows, there was also a king tide that week, so the water levels were expected to be high. The tropical cyclone increased them another foot, so that's kind of what caused all the beach and dune erosion. We also looked at, the duration of the storm. Peak wave heights were around 13 feet, but wave heights reached about 10 feet for about 40-some hours. So all of this during the king tide, caused pretty significant damage to the beaches. So because Emerald Isle has this great drone pilot, they actually were able to fly the beach after the storm and said, is there anything we can do with this information to help quantify the storm impacts? So we said, we can go ahead and take a look at it. So we have the, post-storm drone footage provided by the town of Emerald Isle. We have some spring 2024 surveys that were performed along all of Bogue Banks for the annual monitoring. We also have some drone footage from the previous year from Emerald Isle, which kind of helps us look at, what things looked like last year versus after this storm. And then, like I said, we also coordinated with the Carteret County Shore Protection Office to go out and get some photos on the beach and some measurements of the escarpments. So this is kind of a map of the locations. Most of them are actually in Emerald Isle, courtesy of all this drone footage, but the orangish dots are where we took kind of screen captures from the drone footage, helped us identify which areas we thought the escarpments were worse. The blue dots are where we went out and got ground photos and measurements of escarpments, so it was really kind of a combination of ground photos and drone images that we used to help quantify the storm. So basically what we did is, and I'll flip through this in a second, but we used those measurements to help calculate the amount of sand loss in the dunes. And then we also looked at previous storm data, Hurricane Ophelia, Irene, Florence. We just kind of wanted to see what were the impacts on Bogue Banks of previous storms and how could we use that to maybe estimate some potential damages that, we can't calculate from the drone footage or the ground photos. So I'm going to flip through the photos or the locations that we did measurements along Emerald Isle. I think we did 20 across Bogue Banks, but I want to say 15 or 16 locations were in Emerald Isle. So basically at each location, we went through and measured the height of the dune escarpment. And what we were able to do with that is we drew the dune escarpment based on the field measurements onto the spring 2024 monitoring profile. And then we were able to calculate the amount of sand loss in that escarpment. And based on field measurements and the drone video, we estimated how long the escarpment went, and we were able to calculate a total sand loss for that area up in the dune. So for example, in Seabreeze Court, it looks like there was a 5-foot escarpment. It went for about 450 feet, and it ended up being about 1,800 cubic yards of sand. So we did this at all 20 locations. I'm going to just kind of flip through the pictures for the Emerald Isle ones so you guys can see where we went and kind of see some of the measurements that were taken. Page Place in Emerald Isle, there was about a 3-foot escarpment. And you can also see we did use the drone footage to look at kind of before and after wet and dry beach widths. So that was helpful as well. Conch Street and Sea Dunes Drive, we went and there was a 5-foot escarpment. Sandcastle Drive, a 7-foot high escarpment. Fawn Drive saw a 3-foot escarpment. The Bougainville Pier and RV Park was a little bit different. Rather than an escarpment, it was more of some washout areas. So we actually just measured the dimensions of the washout areas, and we were able to calculate some volume losses from those. The 7400 block, there's a 2-foot escarpment. And then 6900 block or Pinta Drive, looks like there was a 5-foot escarpment. Hurst Road, looking at, can't see exactly what it was, but a 4-foot escarpment. 5100 block or Elizabeth Street, a 2-foot escarpment. 3 to 5 foot escarpment in the 4800 block of Ocean Drive near Edna Street. A 4-foot escarpment around Point West Drive in Emerald Isle. Around 24th Street, we are looking at a 6-foot escarpment. And 18th Street, about a 5-foot escarpment. And 4th Street, I think might have been our last one, but that was about a 6-foot escarpment. Actually, had a couple more, another 2-foot escarpment around 2nd Street. So we went through and did that. We also went to a couple locations in Indian Beach and Pine Knoll Shores. But what we did with that data was basically took it and summed it up over all 20 locations that we went to. And we found there was approximately about 67,000 cubic yards of sand loss in those dune escarpments over 27,000 feet of beach. And since we were only going to specific locations, we said, well, how can we apply this to, all of Bogue Banks? So we kind of took the length of beach from Bogue Inlet through Pine Knoll Shores, which are the areas that saw the escarpments. Atlantic Beach seemed to do fine after the storm. So we took the length of beach from Emerald Isle through Pine Knoll Shores. It was about 95,000 feet, and we applied like an average sand loss, which was about 2.5 cubic yards per foot, and we were able to come up with this final number of 239 cubic yards of sand loss in the dune. And then in order to kind of put some dollars to that, to estimate how much it might cost to replace that, we look at, current dredging prices and mobilization prices, and we're using about $20 per cubic yard to replace that amount of sand, and what that comes out to is about $4.78 million worth of sand, just in those dune escarpments. And then I just wanted to note that Emerald Isle, by length, makes up about 61% of the beach that we looked at. And so if we're talking just Emerald Isle, you probably had about 146,000 cubic yards of sand loss in the dune, which would equate to about $2.9 million. Then what we wanted to do, we don't have data going offshore, but we wanted to see if we could estimate, based on what we lost in the dune, based on what we're seeing in the drone footage as far as shoreline recession, is there a way we can, estimate how much sand was lost, out to the offshore? So we went and looked at those hurricanes that I was talking about previously, and we looked at, Ophelia and Irene, which were a very similar duration to this Tropical Cyclone 8. They lost about 1.5 million cubic yards total during those, so we figured this one might be close. The wave heights during the storm were a little bit smaller, so maybe lost a little bit less sand than in those hurricanes. So what we did is we actually went back and took the annual monitoring data. We looked at the shoreline change versus the volume change over the last year, and we used that kind of as a ratio. So there was almost 7 feet of shoreline erosion from the annual monitoring, which equated to about 1.7 million cubic yards of sand. After looking at the drone footage, we estimated about 5 foot of shoreline erosion along Bogue Banks. And so if we use a ratio, that equates to about 1.25 million cubic yards of sand. So you've got the, 240,000 cubic yards of sand loss up in the dune. But if you're looking at the profile out to the offshore bar, there's a potential that you lost up to, a million-ish cubic yards of sand. We wanted to put a dollar value to that. If we use our $20 per cubic yard estimate for 1.2 million cubic yards, we're talking $25 million of worth of sand. And just to note, Emerald Isle, once again, is about 61% of that. So, potential losses in Emerald Isle were, on the order of 762,000 cubic yards, which would be about $15 million. So I mean, we did what we could with the data we had. We didn't have the typical pre and post storm analysis because it was not a named event and not a federal disaster. But this information was given to the NC Emergency Management in hopes to provide some funding to help put the sand back on the beach. So if you have any questions.
This information, how important was the drone footage?
What?
How important was the drone footage?
Oh, that was extremely important. That
Very
helped us,
important.
since Bow Banks is so long, or in Emerald Isle actually is so long, that helped us pick the places that we needed to go to get the quick photos and measurements in order to put this together. Without that, we're kind of aimlessly walking around trying to find where the escarpments are. So that was extremely important. It was much easier to calculate the stuff in Emerald Isle than in Indian Beach and Pine Knoll Shores where we just had ground photos.
I'd like to thank Mark Cruz, our PIO, for that drone footage. Excellent job, great foresight, and we appreciate everything you're doing.
I have a question for either you or Matt. With that erosion loss, sand loss, everything being documented, how does that, if it plays into future beach nourishment, grant dollars, things like that, is that, I don't want to say sand loss is helpful. You brushed on something like you might want to refresh. We talked about it a little bit as far as what we lost, avenues for getting it back, and all that kind of stuff. If one of the both of you could touch on that, just for the knowledge of everybody in the room.
Sure. The one, I'll start with, I'll ask for a clarification from Nicole, but the team at Moffitt and Nickel, we talked on a Monday, established this process on a Tuesday, and you delivered these results by Friday at noon to meet the requirement with the state to turn that in. And in my years of experience, I've never seen such swift calculations come out. So we want to thank you and your team for doing that. Having had those conversations with the state's emergency management director, they called us because, as everyone in the audience knows, when we have a named storm, everybody's talking about it. So our elected officials that are here with us, either at the county or the state level, are advocating on behalf of Emerald Isle and the entirety of the Bow Banks that the potential impact from PTC number 8 exceeded Hurricane or Tropical Storm Debbie. And so that if we could capture any percent of those dollars, traditionally they've been a 75-25, and then there was a chance for us to partner on the 25% match with the county. Our last nourishment project, we received 12.5-cent investment per dollar. So in this particular application, if our numbers are accurate and we receive any kind of help, it's going to go a long, long way. It would multiply our local dollar by 10 to 12-fold. Is that a rough estimate would be accurate?
Yeah.
It's a tremendous opportunity, but even though we had great drone data, we needed that technical assistance, boots on the ground, and Moffitt and Nickel really rose to the occasion on this one. So for everyone that serves on our beach commission, I think this is a good model of how we can continue to enhance and leverage technology across the entirety of the banks. And so thank you to Ryan Davenport for helping coordinate it, but you all really, you did a tremendous job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. Like I said, you had mentioned that potential for the recuperation of those dollars, and I just, like I said, for our board and everybody in the room and at home, it's a big deal to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, if you can get any money, will go a long way. For those who don't know, the county is starting to plan its next nourishment project, and, you know, sand losses from this storm could impact where sand is placed, but any money that can be provided by Emerald Isle towards, you know, helping, you know, only allows you to get more sand on your beach during the upcoming maintenance project, so.
Thank you. Anybody else on the board have any questions for Ms. Vanderick? Thank you very much. All right, item number 9 is is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner Sanderson with the motion. All in favor? Aye. Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 10, Parks and Rec Director Candace Dooley with the EI Marathon donation update. Hey, Candace.
Good evening, thank you. Mayor, if I may, I think we might have missed public announcements. Do you mind if we rewind and play those really quick?
Totally my fault. Please proceed.
Welcome to the October Public Service announcements for the town of Emerald Isle. Fire Prevention Week is happening from October 6th to October 12th. There will be a blood drive from the American Red Cross on October 11th at the Emerald Isle Community Center. The next Police Educating the Public event takes place on October 15th, starting at 10 a.m. We are excited to announce that the Native Planting Project is scheduled for October 15th and 16th, and we're looking for volunteers to help. Go to the town's website for more information. Come out and support the Neighborhood Watch program on October 19th from 9 to 11 a.m. Join us for a delicious pancake breakfast while supporting a great cause, with drive-through and takeout options available. All cash donations will go to support the Neighborhood Watch program, helping to keep our community safe and connected. The next Coffee with a Cop is on October 24th starting at 9 a.m. The 10th Annual Emerald Isle Marathon, Half Marathon and 5K is set for October 26th. Visit runemeraldisle.com for more info. The Planning Board will meet on October 28th at 6 p.m. November 5th is Election Day. Let your voice be heard. Please get out and vote. The next Neighborhood Watch meeting is November 5th at 4 p.m. Join us for the Emerald Isle Car Show on November 9th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Western Ocean Regional Access. This family-friendly event has free admission and will feature raffles, music, and fun for everyone. Registration is open for the 2024 Emerald Isle Christmas Parade. More info on the town's website. Veterans Day will be observed on November 11th. The administrative offices and community center will be closed. And the next Board of Commissioners meeting will be on November 12th at 6 p.m.
You happy now?
Yes,
Just
sorry.
kidding.
Now it's my turn.
Just kidding.
So as you know from those announcements, we are thrilled that the 10th Annual Emerald Isle Marathon, Half Marathon, and 5K takes place on the 26th of October, just 2 weeks from this Saturday. We have been extremely blessed to have donated over $500,000 over the last 10 years, maybe even more than that, to local health-related charities and to the Emerald Isle Bike and Pedestrian Path. It's been a great honor, and given the extreme devastation to Western North Carolina just a couple of weeks ago, I just felt it in my heart to come to you to get your support that we can take at least 25% of the funding that would normally go to the Bike and Pedestrian Path and send that to Western North Carolina's Emergency and Disaster Response Fund.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Open it up to the board for discussion and/or questions for Ms. Dooley.
Personally, I've been in Western Carolina for the last couple of days. I've been taking trailers full of stuff up there. I've seen a couple different towns. I know we all know Paul Musco. He was kind of on a different area than I have. Me and him shared stories today, and they need it really, really bad. So
I have family in Swananoa and Black Mountain area, and they said the town's completely gone. They had to boil water just to even have drinking water because the flood waters isolated them. So, yeah, I've seen, they're back on Facebook, able to send some pictures, and it's just unbelievable. Significant.
I think it's a wonderful idea, Candace. Personally, I think it's a great thing to do.
Make a motion to approve the 25% of the funds raised by the Emerald Isle Marathon, Half Marathon, and 5K be donated to the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina's Emergency and Disaster Response Fund. But I'll apologize, Commissioner Wooten, if you were about to say something.
I was going to say the same thing as Mark. I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Thank you all. Motion is on the floor by Commissioner Sanderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very
Motion's
much.
carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, item 11, excuse me, be the consideration of a contract for on-call engineering services. I believe this was one table from a previous meeting, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so I'll open it back up to the board. Matt, can you give us oh, Chris, sorry. Snuck up there.
So again, the town was notified that Coastal Stormwater Services could no longer serve in that capacity. We did solicit proposals, received them on August 9. We received 6 total. Staff did diligently review each of them and compared them, and found that out of the 6, Stroud Engineering provided the best available service to the town. So you've got a copy of, in the packet, of the little matrix that staff put together that was used to do the comparisons. That's basically it on that. I'm open up if there are any questions.
Quick question. For Stroud Engineering, who would be our day-to-day point of contact with them?
It'd be Josh Johnson, I believe is his last name. He's actually lives in Emerald Isle on Cedar Street.
And I got a question, I guess for the attorney on this, because I know Josh Johnson personally, coached him in Little League and all that through the stuff, and he helped with my son's site plan and all this stuff, so I didn't know if there's a potential conflict of interest, if I need to recuse myself or not, or?
Mr. Commissioner, I do believe that would can be considered a conflict at this point in time. I think it's pretty broad, generally speaking, but your sort of commitment with him, your family's commitment with him would probably put you in a conflict situation.
Okay, so
I'll make a motion to recuse Commissioner Brownlow from this item of discussion.
Okay, motion is on the floor by Commissioner Sanderson. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion is carried. Thank you. All right, the rest of the board and Mr. Seaberg, open it back up to you all.
This is the second time that staff has made this recommendation to us. I make a motion to enter into a contract with Stroud Engineering for on-call engineering services for the planning department after legal staff has reviewed and approved the contract.
Okay. Commissioner Sanderson has the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Stay right there, Chris. You knew to anyway. Item 12, review of Huston Subdivision. I guess I'm pronouncing that right, Huston or Huston Subdivision application. So, all yours once more. It's what?
It is Houston.
It is you. Okay, I want to make sure.
I had to get that corrected at planning
Just
board
spelled
meeting.
funny.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got on the screen just a real quick PowerPoint on this project. Staff received the application. Parcel is located at 205 13th Street. The application is to take one lot and divide it into 2. It takes place under the parameters under Section 6.1 of the Emerald Isle Unified Development Ordinance. Current information for the parent lot is it's 0.67 acres, 29,185 square feet. It's got 228 linear footage of right-of-way frontage on 13th Street. And down here is, Lot A is the parent parcel, and it does meet our minimum standard of 12,500 square feet, and then the second one is right at 12,500 square feet. So just give the board an idea of the parent lot, what it looks like on the aerial side, and of course, text information on the side. And this is the proposed subdivision. Anytime you're taking a parent lot and you're cutting it out and there's existing structure there, you got to try to ensure, or not try, you have to ensure that There's no encroachment in the setbacks. So that's where you have that very octagonal shape set of lines, but each portion of that meets the 15-foot setback on the side and rear. You have the addition on very small sliver, but it goes on in and it goes to the waterfront, so that lot does have waterfront access. And again, meets our minimum standards for a residential lot. So just some general information, this total, both lots, they're located in both flood zone AE6, and also there's no flood zone in some portions of it. Parcels currently zoned are 2 residential. And as far as the minimum standards, dimensional requirements is 12,005. And as I stated before, Lot A remains at 15,000 and Lot B is 12,500. And then of course, minimum width is 75 feet. Lot A is 135 feet and Lot B is 90 feet plus. The Planning Board did review this request during their September 23rd meeting and unanimously approved a recommendation for you guys to approve this application as submitted. As far as options or actions by this board, you can approve the subdivision as submitted. You can approve the proposed subdivision with conditions. If you'd like more time to discuss it, you can table it to the next meeting, which is November 12th, or you have that option to deny the application. And that's all I have, if there aren't any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Chris, was there a perk test required of the lots, of both lots?
There, for a subdivision review, there typically is not, but as you'll see, can you put the presentation back up? As you can see, they have had studies done, and you'll see a sewer or a septic easement on the corner here, and that's designed to serve both lots.
This is actually right across the street from where I live, and I'm very familiar with the property. I've spoken to many of the property owners and neighbors along Timber Trail and along 13th Street, and I've heard no objections to this subdivision. And everything that has been done, it's actually the parent, that's a good term because it is a parent of the wife of the Hustons who own the mother property, and everything they've done on that property has been first class, and I don't expect anything less from this lot.
That was my question. Was the neighbors, you asked the neighbors? But
I can attest to it.
Yeah,
There's no opposition.
I was just curious about that, so that's good to know. That was my only question.
Any other questions for Chris while he's up there?
Make a motion to approve this application as recommended by the Emerald Isle Planning Board.
Commissioner Sanderson has made the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you, Chris. Excuse me. All right, item 13, recommendation for design and build a fire station 2 by Tarheel Builders. Billy, good evening, sir.
Can you hear me? There we go.
Yes, sir.
Evening, board. Thank you for having me. Tonight, standing before you, we had a RFQ out for bid or out for qualifications for the entire month of August, just about. It closed on September 2nd. And so between September 2nd and I believe it was September 20th, myself and Deputy Chief Coffey did some research on the 3 qualifications that we got back. These qualifications are for the building of Fire Station 2 located at 2810 Emerald Drive. That existing building, I believe, was 88. And so we have some funding earmarked for that from 428 funds. And so we worked with our architect who was initially came back with a $7 million bill. Obviously, nobody in here is going to say yes on that one, but we have worked that number down to what we have allotted for it. And so I'm coming to you tonight to ask to enter into an agreement with Tarheel Building Systems. They are out of New Bern. They have 38 years of experience, general contracting services for commercial properties, unlimited license, and they have listed several different firehouses. Upon doing that research during that time frame, visited one of these projects in Onslow County. That building is Piney Green Fire Department, located off Piney Green Road. It's a little over 15,000 square foot building, and what they have told us is that build is a $3.5 million build. So well within our scope. They did include in their proposal or qualifications that the $314 per square foot allotted appears reasonable based on projects of similar scope and scale that they have recently completed. So before you tonight, we did get 3 of them, so I did check with Laura. We only needed 2 of them for the request for qualifications. So as far as all the laws and FEMA procurement, we are all good on that aspect.
Mayor? Chief, I think when we visited Piney Green, there is a potential that the Tarheel superintendent is actually a resident of EI, which we felt was a really strong benefit. Yeah. Obviously anchored in the community and would be obviously immediately responsible.
That is correct. He is listed in these qualifications and his builds as well, but he does live here on Emerald Isle, down Coast Guard Road, I believe.
Thanks, sir. Board have questions for Chief Matthias? And/or discussion amongst yourselves, obviously.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize contract with Tarheel Builders to design and build Fire Station Number 2.
Motion's on the floor by Commissioner Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you, sir. 13A, Chief Matthias has a presentation on ocean rescue vehicles. Excuse me.
Welcome back to the podium. All right. Anyways, this is a short presentation, 9 slides. So it gives us an overview of what our current inventory is, what our use is for, how long we've had these units, and then we'll roll into replacement for these units, and then talk about kind of in general why this is important and what we've done with what we have currently. So our current inventory, as you see there, and how it's listed, that 2021 Gladiator is listed in months of service. So when we go through this presentation, the same vehicles ranking is in the same order every time. So we've had that vehicle for 43 months of service. Our next unit is Wrangler, which is 33 months of service. And then we go 25, 25, and 22. I didn't put that little. So when we go into this fleet program, we look at a resale of a vehicle. We take those vehicles, in this case Jeep, they have a great resale. There's a great following with these Jeeps. There's a great following with some other vehicles out there. And so as we use these vehicles and we look to turn these vehicles over and replace our fleet, which replaces our vehicles on the beach stream for our service and also our employees, we look at the equity that's estimated to return back to us in positive equity. So in that same ranking, that 43-month unit, we're going to have a $6,000 positive return back, okay? As we go down this list, that Wrangler has a $9,000, okay? So it's resale. $9,000 on the third one, $7,000 on the fourth one. It's a net neutral. Obviously not here tonight to look at that fifth one. It's not the right time for us. Total is $31,000 estimated equity. And that is coming from Enterprise, who handles this day in and day out as far as these numbers. So maybe asking, what's the cost on this? So again, 1 through 5, same order as you've seen, the 43-month one, 702, 828, 775, 845, and 763 for that fifth one. That totals us at $39.14 per month and some change that we utilize these vehicles for emergency services out there. Ooh, sorry, I got a little close on that one. That was what we currently have. What we're looking to do is replacement, going to the Toyota Tacomas, Obviously, again, I spoke about that high resale value, that high return once we go to resell it back out. Those monthly breakdowns and your terms that they're in front of you are 786 for two. Those two are factory order. They have a lead time of April of 2025 currently. The two 60-month ones at 744.10, they are dealer stock, so we're dependent upon a dealer to find those somewhere, somehow, and let us know that they're available. We do have information that they can get them to us if we move forward with this. And then, of course, we would keep that fifth Gladiator there that was a net neutral. Doesn't make sense for us to sell, so it's going to stay in our. So our new total monthly would be $38.24.98. That's a savings per month of $89.39. Wrong one. So real quick, putting it together, $31,000 in equity. We're going to use $20,000 of that equity as a down payment. They call it a capitalized price reduction. It's a down payment. Those are the two that you see that drop down to that 741.10. The two dealer stocks, because it costs a little bit more to get dealer stocks rather than getting through the factory. You get a little bit more bells and whistles on them. And then graphics, so that's $1,000 per vehicle to put Ocean Rescue, Emerald Isle Fire Department on it. So on top of the $89.39 per month, there's a $7,000 positive return from selling cycling the 4 units back wherever they go. We don't care at that point in time. So the potential savings there, $1,072.68 over 12 months, $7,000 in positive equity back. So $8,000 or $8,072.68. Everything I just said, this is the worksheet that I compiled that Laura likes. I know she's speaking this language, but this is coming straight from our budget worksheets and summaries that we put together, and all this flows come March time when all the department heads who see these emails come out, and they're like, oh, God, it's that time. But at the bottom of it, I will say, again, on the factory order, I know I got close there. The factory order, those two top ones that you see in Tacoma's, lead time of April of 2025. We're at the start of the summer season, okay? We're supposed to have services out there, Ocean Rescue. They asked for the two from the dealer stock, because obviously it would make better sense to get Ford. It's a little bit cheaper of a price, but having 4 units out of service, we don't have enough units to put on the beach strand to provide that service that we've provided in the past. So that's the ask for the 2 dealer stock ones. So we can get those units in, upfit them, which takes 1 to 2 months. And all that equipment that we use to upfit, minus some brackets, maybe some lights that have flown over the years, are reused from vehicle to vehicle. Radios are reused. Small things like, sun exposure to your roof racks, pads, surfboard pads, those things have to get replaced over time. Additionally, if this is selected to go forward, as soon as we get these vehicles stripped of their equipment and turn them back in, it relinquishes us of the payment. Correct, Laura? Okay, just making sure. I meant to speak to you earlier about that. So once we cycle this, if we choose to cycle those 4 Jeeps out and Enterprise reclaims them, they take them wherever, they're off our books until we get delivery of the new units. Obviously, the 2 dealer units would come in sooner, so we got a little bit more savings in that as well. If the other 2 from the factory don't come in until April, we're not paying that $741 until we receive that unit as a okay, on ground in Emerald Isle. With that, we get 3 years, 36,000 mile warranties, brand new. It breaks, it's not being towed into the firehouse. The firefighters are not tearing radiators apart, trying to get them back on the beach strand, because we all know how important it is in the summertime with our visitors and tourists and citizens here. And then again, with the 2 units coming in from the dealer stock, it allows training. So each March when we start Ocean Rescue training again, there is a beach driving course, there's a backup. We talk about the features of the vehicles. Backup cameras, always turn left for your driver to see. All that training is essential if you change out your vehicles as well. So that would all play back into the grand scheme of all this. So real quick, I'll just hit that one. Basically what we've done over time We've had 5 Jeep units. Right now, say that's $200,000. If we were to go out right now, buy a brand new, it's $200,000. We've stretched that $200,000 over 3 or 4 years, potentially more, and making money for the town, which we could choose to put back into the down payments or whatever it needs to go to at that point in time. So that's the presentation. If there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them the best that I can.
Thanks, sir. Back to the board.
I'll ask, I love this lease program, particularly for these types of vehicles, and I know how important it is that you guys have something reliable and get you up and down the beach. I was surprised it's popped up last night as a new item to consider, and I understand there's maybe a request to buy additional vehicles, not buy, but obtain additional vehicles for the police department next month? No?
No, sir, there's no additional vehicles. What we're trying to do is monitor our vehicles that are having maintenance repairs. So we didn't cycle very many vehicles this last budget, unfortunately. And what we're seeing is we've had a catastrophic engine failure in a police Charger, which was a $10,000 cost. We had another engine failure that precipitated this conversation on Friday. We towed that vehicle to Clinton to what used to be Performance, and they had to do a diagnostic on that as well. And the last vehicle that failed, we were able to actually purchase one of our lease cars for around $3,800 or $4,000, which saved us a tremendous amount. So instead of spending $10,000 to do engine replacements, we're trying to keep the youngest and the lowest mileage fleet vehicles in. So the direct answer to the commissioner's question is no new vehicles, and it's just keeping the age of the vehicles down and trying to keep them all under the warranty period.
There's not another set of slides like this next month or in December about they're the police vehicles we need?
Yes, sir, we will be looking at cycling police vehicles based on their age and
Can we do
time period.
those all together so we see the whole picture of how many vehicles and what the impact is, or what's the urgency, I guess, is the question.
So I would add to that, I mean, what happened in previous years, we would make these decisions, say, in February. Okay? Some of those vehicles are not easy to get a hold of. As I mentioned, dealer has to search them out, maybe different states. I have no idea how that process is. So let's say at the fire department who do the upfitting of the vehicles, which saves anywhere from $900 to $1,500. If we were to send it somewhere else, we have to we have to receive that unit. We have to get it upfitted, like I said, a month or two. And then that puts us right at game time. In this particular I was been working with Enterprise, I believe, for a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe. I think it was 2 weeks. And so they did say that the Toyota Tacoma factory orders would be closing within the next week or two. And then obviously the dealer stock, if, I walk into a Toyota dealership, I want that red one right there, and it's gone. So not saying that's the end all be all there, but wouldn't say there is a sense of urgency with the factory orders, but to try to better position the fire department in the upfits, it gives us some time. I know we have, I think, 2 Chargers right now about to come in for upfitting just because we're coming out of the summer season. It's not the right time to put firefighter and then put police officers on bikes going up and down Emerald Drive. So not necessarily an urgency on that, but trying to better position us as we roll into the summer season, but also help with savings as well.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Questions for Chief Mathias?
I mean, sounds good to me.
Sounds like he needs it.
Less taxpayer money, better service, better equipment, especially something that's in the sand every day.
Less maintenance?
Less maintenance.
Commissioner Brownlow? I want to make sure everybody had a chance to speak, sir.
I'm good. I'd like to make a motion to authorize town staff to move forward with the resale of older Jeeps and replacement for new trucks.
Commissioner Sawyer's made the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief. All right. Joe Smith, Matt Zapp, stormwater mitigation improvements.
Very cold.
Cold?
Yes.
You better take some medicine with you.
Thank you, sir. We're going to work on this one together. There's the numerical nuances, trying to balance the budget, and then technical questions about pump size, rate of flow, all those things Joe's going to help us work through. So if Mark will bring up our PowerPoint for the stormwater, we worked on that. We'll go from there. So what we wanted to talk about tonight was really a lot to do with the unnamed storm at PTC number 8. And we've been very fortunate, and again, our hearts, thoughts, and prayers are with our western neighbors. And I'm going to take a minute. Most recently, 4 of our extremely gifted firefighters were on mutual aid for a 7-day turn out west. And I had a chance to talk to Deputy Chief Coffey about it today. The knowledge that's coming back from our deployments is enhancing our ability to review and respond to our disasters. And again, if you haven't seen or have paid attention to the level, width, and magnitude of the impact in Western North Carolina, we've been so fortunate here that we have really dodged a bullet since 2018. We did have Dorian in 19. We had Debbie this year, and then out of the blue, a 9-inch event in PTC number 8. So what that has done for us, and the board has asked us to give you an update and an assessment. That's you. He's magnetic.
Like with a concert.
So, oh, that's this one.
So are you?
Maybe the clicker. The fixed, we have existing fixed stormwater pumps. So in our system, we have 7 fixed stormwater pumps. And how we explain those, that Moffitt and Nickel was even discussing tonight, we had a preliminary meeting that preempted this one at 4:30 that pertains specific to Cape Emerald. Those are the pumps that you may or may not notice that are in the right-of-way that have some vegetative buffers around them. And you have seen a lot of work occurring in those areas, and we had applied for and received grant funding to do 2 major upfits for resiliency. The first in that upfit was electric service. We were able to take overhead power lines in cooperation with Carteret Craven and move those lines underground. We were also able to take single phase and improve them to 3-phase, which will help the long-range life cycles of our pumps and the operations of our pumps. And then the next redundancy, we applied for, bid, and we're physically today in the process of putting generators out. And all of these projects were FEMA funded. So now we're putting standby generations, which will have LP or propane stationary tanks and should give us a minimum of 72 or more operational hours at each of those sites. So what we want to talk about first are the fixed pumps. Want everyone to know we've upgraded electric service, and then we're in the process of rolling out generators. Put my glasses back on for this. So we have a series of pumps with a series of different sizes, different horsepowers, and different phasing. And the board had asked us, we had an issue at Island Circle that happened to just fall out of cycle. So Hurricane Debbie was coming to town.
Correct.
And immediately following Debbie, we had an issue mechanically.
Yes.
You want to explain then what happens into the PTC number 8?
Yeah, so like Matt said, Debbie came in, the pump was running, and we went to do our services and checks, noticed it was kind of making some funny noises. So we pulled that pump out, sent it to Stone Collins Motor in Jacksonville. He told us it's going to be about 2 weeks. We're like, okay, that should be good. You know, nothing was brewing out there. We should be all right. Contacted us in that 2 weeks and said that the bearings failed, the impeller failed. It'd be, you know, I think it's $7,000 to fix that. It'd be $14,000 to replace it, or an upgraded, not an upgrade, but a different model would be like $20,000. So obviously we took the repair option on that one. But then when he told us that, it was like, okay, well, it'll take 2 weeks to get the part. So that pump being down for that almost a whole month is part of the issue we had with the flooding down there at Island Circle, because we had no pump there. They were still, still recovering from a little bit of Debbie and the rain event before that. I think it was the Friday or something before PTC 8 hit. So we were still kind of, we were managing it with our little 3-inch pump, but when that storm came, it just overwhelmed it, and that's why we had to get the portable 4 or 6-inch pump down there. But I feel if we had that, which is going to lead into this, is I feel if we had a backup pump in stock for that, then we could have, eliminated part of that issue there where, there still might have been a little bit of flooding, but it wouldn't have been as much as it was. I think we could have controlled it if we had the backup pump put in place while the other one got repaired to put that one back on the shelf, so.
So if you will, we'll put the slideshow back up. And I want to be the first to point out, did anyone else hear Joe use Little Debbie in a sentence? So after Little Debbie, we decided that we had problems. And so we wanted to categorically grasp, in the event, which is best management practice, what would you do for catastrophic failure? You would have those shelf stock items currently available, pull it off and go fix your pump. Well, not every pump is the same, so this is the minimum list that would be necessary to have a redundant pump at each site. And so right now at Deerhorn and Conch, they share the same style, so we need to purchase one at $12,000. Spinnaker's has 4 pumps, so we would want to have one at least minimum in inventory. That's about $5,500. Doe Drive, it's a unique situation, a very small pump. It's about $4,200. Then Island Circle, which we just talked about, has been repaired, but really the best solution there is to have a new unit inside Island Circle and then maybe pull the old one out and keep it on the shelf. EI Woods, you're looking at a $9,500 pump, and if you add those up, aggregate their totals, it's around $46,000 to $50,000. That's going to give us the best solution to protect ourselves of having a potential replacement for each of our options that could fail. Then there's a question of mobile pumps versus fixed pumps. So we wanted to show you what the picture of a mobile pump looks like, and we talked about this a little bit at our Cape Emerald meeting. So, for example, if a named storm was preparing to come to EI, we'd be having conversations about, all right, look in the severity, what's the weather pattern, what do we need to be doing in between finance, admin, and public works. We'd be making some phone calls, and what we would be doing is renting pumps. We would rent crossover drive ramps. We'd be renting a substantial amount of hoses, and then we would be ready to pre-deploy those. Now, when we go to rent that runs around $10,000 a week, and this is what is critical. Only one time have we not received a reimbursement, correct, so far in our term together. So 99 out of 100, 9 out of 10 times, greater than 90%, we're going to get our money back because it's being funded, because it begins ultimately to become a named storm. And so the preemptive pumping has really helped keep roadways passable. That's important for so many reasons, but it's dominantly important for police, fire, EMS traffic. And so when we position, you'd see this pump, whether it would be down off a Coast Guard or near the Coast Guard station, we're pumping, or inside of Cape Emerald, utilizing 6-inch and 4-inch pumps. And we ran a 6-inch pump off a Coast Guard for 7 straight days, approximately 500 gallons a minute at idle, 24 hours a day, moved a little bit north of 5 million gallons of water. And so when we priced all this out, if we wanted to own those assets, have that inventory in-house, the total cost estimate is $200,000, which is why we haven't done that in the past. So again, having reviewed it, we still do not recommend buying those 2 mobile pumps. We still do not recommend buying the hoses because it's a lot to store. The problem then becomes, where are we storing the units? Do we have a small engine mechanic on staff to maintenance? Are we maintaining a contract? It makes greater sense to rent them and then roll them when needed, but we have to be first in line. Well, what we found to be problematic is getting our hands on roadway ramps. We can tend to get pumps, we can tend to get hose, but everybody tries to get the roadway ramps out of rental. And they're lesser expensive, so they're varying between $8,000 to $10,000 depending on type, but we would like to at least purchase 1, if not 2, and here's the reason why. So you heard tonight from the team, the family owners of the homes and properties in Cape Emerald. When we rolled a 6-inch pump to Cape Emerald, when we did not have a crossover ramp, we physically had to sit a human being there 24 hours a day to turn the pump on, turn the pump off so you could drive across the hose. Turn the pump on, turn the pump off, drive across the hose. So we said, that doesn't make logical sense. And we really struggled to find a ramp, which that was a partial delay in getting that piece of equipment. And it got so bad that I had to call Joe and I said, unfortunately, we're getting too close to the edge. You're going to have to put somebody there 24 hours a day. And then boom, he was able to find a ramp. And so those are all the pieces of behind the curtain that we want to share with you and the public, that if we make a minor investment of either $8,000 to $10,000, depending on the style of ramp, and all the bids are in your full document we emailed out, we can at least have those in inventory, store them. There's nothing that can break on them. So that makes good sense. I wanted to pause here. Is everybody clear about the benefit of rental versus purchase and then the reimbursement process? We appreciate, because the board, I want to share with the public, the board was not only actively engaged in the last two storms, you were physically driving and checking sites, looking at the equipment used. What is your direct assessment of how staff responded? Is there anything more you would want us to be doing? We're looking for your feedback tonight because we think that we've really enhanced that process, and your ask of what could we do better has resulted in tonight's public presentation. We're very thrilled to share that, but we want to answer any questions that the elected official may have in this stormwater readiness plan.
I toured the areas, I took pictures. Every time we have a rain event, I hop in my truck and ride around and look. And what I saw when we had that, I guess the tropical storm rain, that did give us a lot of rain that I haven't seen in a while. And roads that I haven't seen ponding and flooding in a while were flooded. And I saw those ramps, and I thought they were really functional and effective in what they were doing. And I'm glad to see that it's going to be before the board to consider purchasing those ramps. I think they're a valuable asset. But I think the staff did as well a job as they could possibly do with what they had to work with to keep the roads safe, passable, emergency vehicles be able to access the roads, keep people. They had signs up. I think it was an incredible job by staff on that. And I do think that in the sake of resiliency and developing and building a resilient Emerald Isle for the future, that nothing short of, we live on a barrier island. Flooding is part of the problem, and that we got to live with, and pumping is a solution. It's an expensive solution, but it is it's the most viable solution for now until something's invented where we can store stormwater somewhere, somehow, some way. So I think it's just a matter of the funding, where the funds are going to come from. And, are there resiliency grants available?
So we'll go ahead and if we can bring the slideshow back up real quick, and if any other commissioners have questions about this particular purchase versus rental. That's the reason that we haven't in the past bought them. We've discussed this multiple times, and it continues to show that the money's just not there, the benefit versus the risk. So we've been, knock on wood, successful in maintaining really good partnerships and contracts with our rental companies, getting to be the front in the line. And the only kink in that armor we can identify are these roadway ramps. So the next question about this, how does this work? What is our emergency ops flow chart? So today it's dry, everybody's having a great day, it's sunny and beautiful. When a major rain event hits EI, it must have a trigger, and that trigger is greater than 3 inches of volume of rain in a 24-hour period. When that happens, and only when that happens, can staff seek approval from the state of North Carolina and the agencies, including Shellfish Sanitation, DEQ, and others. Once we get a green light with our 3-inch or greater trigger, then we can begin pumping, and we only can begin pumping with specific zones that we have to ask for permission at each site. And so I want to applaud Joe, Chad, and their team. How we've handled it in the last couple of disaster events has been extremely methodical. And we've had a policy and a process in position for years. And during PTC number 8, they threw us a curveball and said, well, now, instead of just calling Mr. Taylor, you've got to call Mr. Taylor, Mr. Wooten, and Mr. Holland. And then they did. They told us now we have 3 more people to contact. But we're comfortable about it. We kept great notes and we're updating our internal policies. But again, to stress to the community, it's a 3-inch trigger. So once we get greater than 3 inches, then we can start. And the reality that surrounds this is it's the importance of keeping both the ocean front and specifically the sound, the water clean. It's a water quality situation because if you have aggregated water, you have roadway debris like oils and contaminants, nutrients in the grasses, and when you do what's considered to be a point source discharge, you can see all kinds of negative impact, and that's where that comes from. Any questions about how we get to the permission to pump? Because we were getting calls about certain cul-de-sacs or certain areas that were flooding, and you can't just send staff out to pump unless the trigger's met. If you can bring the slideshow back up and leave it up. So any questions on this slide? So one of the areas that we do pump that we talked about a little bit is the Cape Emerald discharge and equalization pipe locations. So in Cape Emerald, on Cape Emerald Loop, plus or minus around the 414, 416 residential addresses, we have a pipe that discharges. And that pipe is approximately 15 inches, and that pipe discharges to the sound. And it has a float style system where once it gets to an inlet, not a float, but it's a gravity style system, water rises, it goes into the box, and then makes its way out. And sometimes during major events, very similar to the one we saw a couple of weeks ago, water's coming into Cape Emerald faster than water can get out. Now, we established tonight in our conversation with the owners and the board of Cape Emerald that, knock on wood, I'm very fortunate and thankful that no one has taken water at a property since 2018, which that was historic and categorically 30-plus inches. And I hate to be the person that says this, there's not much we can do when that happens. But everything between 18 and today, keeping lines clear, using our pull-behind jet trailer, maintaining inlets, keeping lines open, contracting with the town of Newport to come and do jet vacuum, all of those are preemptive steps to keep the system in full operation. There's a level setting here, a question that we want to talk about. We want to know when you would like us to deploy pumps to this area because we know that there's a health and safety issue and we would deploy immediately. And then there's an appearance issue. And so what we have been is proactively having the 6-inch pump ready to go. And we believe that if we buy a ramp system, that this is one of the first places that will be deployed. If you want us to continue to have that highest level of service to Cape Emerald, which again, I want to stress is not a health and safety issue, it's more of a perception versus reality, then we would need to buy 2 ramps. And so we just wanted to bring that up. Hopefully we can get closer tonight. We believe that we have 50% of the temporary easements that we need, and we may only need the other easement for 414, and we can have a better long-term solution. This is a short-term problem at Cape Emerald, if that makes sense. No decision needs to be made. I just want to brief you on it and let you know where we would be deploying those assets.
Matt, when I first came to the board, there was talk, and it was like roughly 6 years ago, about having like an underground tank. And I don't know, it kind of fell to the wayside. It was before anybody else was here. But there was using it for like the greenway for our waterways and stuff. And from the last meeting, this meeting, it kind of brought up again. And then Commissioner Brownlow said something about a place to store it or something too. And then when we met with the last Emerald, Cape Emerald people, they were talking about pumping down their ponds, but we couldn't pump down their ponds because we're not allowed to because we can't dump it into the sound. But I'm not sure, maybe we should research just a little bit about an underground storage tank that we could use to pump their ponds down, and then we could use that water to for our greenways and stuff. I don't know what the cost would want to be, and that might have been the reason it didn't go anywhere 6 years ago, but it might be a possibility to look into as far as.
So I think I can answer that if you,
yeah, sure.
if you want it today.
Oh, definitely.
There's 2 issues here. One is the height of our groundwater. Our surface water is one thing, but our groundwater table is so high that when you try to submerge an empty tank, the buoyancy it's going to try to push. Okay. So we actually ran into that issue specific to even placement of our propane tanks. So we were trying to put our 1,000-gallon propane tanks and couldn't even get them to submerge. So I think there is your first, our first issue that we encountered. That led us down the path of these above ground, below sand dune infiltration systems. And I firmly believe in all the research we've done, Dr. Hunt at NC State, that we are going to see a very viable solution to moving more stormwater into these above ground cells. And what they're doing is percolating and purifying the water, very similar to what a septic system does. So if you can then, what we call in our industry, treat that stormwater, that is the best overall. So you're moving the stormwater away from the people that could be negatively impacted, putting it into a containment system that will allow it to perk out, let the sediment make its way out, and then cleaner water could move. So if that's okay, I think we should really be investing our time and energy in trying to pursue the
Sure,
dune
yeah.
infiltration.
Oh, yeah, that
And
makes sense.
that's the answer why, I think. And if anybody else has experience, I saw a lot of head nodding. It was the buoyancy of that
Makes perfect sense
airspace.
to me, yeah. I didn't think.
Yeah, we looked at that several years ago, Mark,
I
to
remember.
address the flooding that we see in the right-of-way, the 200-foot right-of-way at the intersection of Coast Guard and Highway 58, and the buoyancy is a major issue with that.
That makes perfect sense. I just couldn't remember, it'd been 6 years, and I couldn't remember the outcome. Thanks.
So, and I think Ronnie's probably still with us. We lovingly refer to it as the Watson Pond, right? When you're coming into the island, you say, well, we know where the water table is based on how much is held in that right of way. So we'll look for solutions there. I think that minor solutions for the Cape Emerald team, as well as the folks in Land's End that we've really shifted to, is allowing them and encouraging them to pump their irrigation system from those ponds. It's a twofold win because it's reducing the amount of stormwater. It's also reducing the amount of potable water that Bogue Banks is trying to deliver them that's drinkable, and they are reaching their peak. So between the tiered rate for Bogue Banks water on the charge side, which really helps drive down the irrigation number, and then pond water usage, there's some real great long-term solutions here. So on the temporary pumping conditions, we just wanted to brief you on that. And then here's where we are in basic and a summary. So as we look forward to either cost savings that may be derived from our FEMA 428 funds, any amount of money we have left in a budgetary status, or if it's something that we need to plan for in the next fiscal year, the dominant recommendations coming out of our team are going to be pertinent to purchasing backup pump materials. That's around a $46,000 cost. Potentially the 2 roadway ramps at about $16,000. So we're looking at about a $60,000 to $65,000 investment. And I want to use that term specific. This isn't a spend. This is an investment that will help protect us all. So a $60,000 to $65,000 investment can protect us in millions of dollars of loss and potentially keeping those roadways open, which is a life savings measure. So as we encourage the board, we want to think through as a staff every savings that we have. If there's an investment that can be executed in this budget, we prefer to do it. If it's in a greater budget later down the road, it's the redundancy of this system based on your involvement in the last 2 storms that would help us be better tomorrow than we are today.
Thanks, sir.
No actions needed here tonight. Any other questions, anything else like Commissioner Taylor's asked that we should either research or talk through that would help you as we try to protect everybody's property?
You know, I took a lot of the telephone calls about the pumps going on and stuff, and I think there's a drastic need immediately for those ramps that you're talking about, and at least for staff and not having to stay up 24 hours a day working them and stuff. I think, you know, I don't know if the board thinks about it, I think we should go ahead and give you the authority to purchase those ramps now, because we're still in hurricane season and more ramps are coming along. That's very important to have.
So if we have the dollars in the budget, what I would recommend is if we can afford to at least get one, we should definitely pull the trigger. My authorization is limited to 10,000, or my role is limited to 10,000 without board approval. So if you want to give us the potential approval, if the money is available, if we find savings elsewhere to purchase 2, that would be the choice.
Is there any money in that contingency fund from the fee increase?
Yes. Absolutely. Great point.
I think that this is more of a safety issue that we're not giving due credit to. Putting an employee out there 24 hours a day in extreme conditions is not safe. I mean, we're talking potential thunder, lightning, winds, everything else. And I think that we owe it to our employees and our citizens to move forward with this.
And Commissioner, on that point, if we have to position you to monitor the pump, we can't deploy you to go check a storm drain, clear a road.
Correct.
That was our other concern is, we appreciate you checking out on our safety. We're in the trenches too, and that's a great situation, but it really just took us from 9 people to 8. And that was,
Which
that's
is
extremely,
I mean, you're
very
already
important.
dealing with limited
Yeah.
resources.
Very important point.
I think that we should find a way to find the money to purchase at least one, preferably 2.
That contingency is a great place to look at.
Yeah,
Good suggestion, Commissioner Brown.
Then I'll make a motion that the staff explore the use of the contingency funds to purchase the ramp, at least one ramp, maybe 2 if the funds are available, if we can afford that much, but at least one of the ramps, because I did see the benefit of that and the safety, rather than having a human out there trying to turn it off, let the cars pass. So anyway, that's my motion, is the staff look at the funding to purchase one of the ramps, one or more.
Assuming that comes with the condition that staff reports back to the board and you have board consensus before spending anything outside of departmental authorization.
As amended.
Could we possibly do that informally? I mean, we're at the height of hurricane season right now.
So it would, for me, to be safe, today we can purchase 1. If you're in agreement that 2 is where we need to go and we think it's 2, if we can afford to find it in those areas, I think we could find the savings to get us to that point because we're working diligently in that. It's probably critical that you would vote to allow us to do that, because if not, if something happens between today and the next board meeting,
We're back
I
in the same
would hate to
position.
tell you that we didn't have the authorization to buy it, and I'm not even sure what the lead time is. So that's something I think you'd want to work through. If you want to take action tonight, just tell us what you want us to do and we'll gladly do it.
Well, Commissioner Brownlow's amended motion, I think staff researching the additional funds, I know it's not a ton of money, but it's money, at least at a minimum, report back to the elected body where we're going to get those funds from, and everybody at least individually feels good about it. So I would leave the motion on the floor for Commissioner Brownlow. All in favor? Your amended motion was to authorize the staff to move forward with purchasing as long as there was an acceptable source of funds to fund it.
So that'd be next month before we vote on
It doesn't have to be. If they find it and we need to get together for 10 minutes on the way to work, we can make that happen too.
Is that can I ask the town attorney if that's a correct?
Sure.
Well, did you make an amended motion, I guess is the question. I heard the original motion, and you're certainly allowed to amend it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, I amended it with the mayor's comments about, with the board's consent, after the staff researches the funding source. Do I need to retract that and just make a new motion?
Yeah, let's start over. Start over.
I might have muddied the waters there. I just want to make sure all
Just go
you
with your
5 are on the
original
same
one.
page.
Go with your original one.
Yeah, okay, just, then the original motion without the amendment.
Sorry. All right, motion is on the floor by Commissioner Brownlow. All in favor?
All right.
I don't fully understand.
I
just want to make.
I wanted to make sure I was clear.
I just want to understand before I vote real quick. If they find the money, they can buy the ramp? Is that where we're at on this motion?
No, if they find the money, then we come back to another special meeting to approve it. Or either we wait
Oh,
till
I'm
the
glad
next
you asked, because I thought it was that the money's there.
I thought so too.
I said
That's,
the
that
money-
was going to be my question.
Have the money.
Buy a ramp if the money's there.
Just tell them we
Yeah,
have the
that's
money.
why it helps to have the motion.
Laura, do we have the money?
Laura, do we have the money?
Laura, do we have the money?
So yes, for the ramps, the 16,000, we can locate those funds. We can go ahead and procure that right now, as an emergency, if we wanted to put that in place during the month of October. And then if I need to pull it from contingency, for example, I could bring you a budget amendment in November and we'll slide those, into the Public Works Department. But if you say, yes, go for it, go ahead and get those ramps right now, we want to get them in place.
that your
Then
motion?
we could handle it that way and it'd be totally legal, so.
Okay, I'm gonna try to phrase this again.
Do what Laura said.
Buy the ramps. Yeah, I make a motion that we authorize staff to purchase the ramps, 2 ramps, using the available funds, and if necessary, doing a budget amendment next month at the board meeting.
Motion's on the floor by Commissioner Brownlow. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
That was
Didn't mean to
great. Thank you
complicate that.
so much. Highly appreciated.
Yeah.
All right.
Are we clear? So you're free to research, get your best option, bring a PO for it. Thank you.
Commissioner?
I made that hard enough, didn't I? Okay, all right. I'm trying, man. Item number 15, procedures pertaining to legal counsel. Just a brief summary, like for the Board of Commissioners to discuss and establish an official procedure governing communication between town officials and the attorney. Historically, there's been some ambiguity with who within the town government can contact the town attorney, for what purposes. Anybody just go at will? Do you need consensus from the board? There's lots of discussion that can be had, but it can be confusion, inefficiency, unintended cost. Call upon the board to discuss and come up with a formal resolution regarding procedures pertaining to contact legal counsel. What's that, sir? I'm sorry. Have I missed one?
The vote on 5002 Bow Court. Requested.
So
This is the next thing on the agenda.
On Boat Court, what I was going to do was present that at my manager's report, if that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, all right.
No, you're on the right agenda item.
Okay, all right. All right, so that is covered, good catch, good question. All right, back to procedures pertaining to legal counsel. I'll open up to the board. You all had discussion on it before, and I'll let you carry on.
I don't know if there's confusion and ambiguity, then I think that we should come up with a procedure or a chain of command for who is to contact legal and what that process is. And typically, it's, from my past experience, it's been the manager, or in their absence, the clerk or the mayor. Counsel, can you tell us what the
Yeah, Madam Commissioner, so I've been here 3 months now. I did a lot of research prior to my first meeting to figure out kind of who was my boss, and it's not completely clear.
Exactly.
Every town has its own set of rules and procedures, but generically speaking, I work for the town. The town isn't any of us necessarily. We've got CEO to my right, we've got the board, the mayor, finance directors, et cetera. And so technically I work for everybody, but the towns are allowed to develop, kind of the research that led me to, are allowed to develop their own set of rules and protocols. So if the rule is only respond to the board, then I would only respond to the board if that's the rules you want. If it's only responding to our CEO, to our manager, then that's what I'll do. But if anybody were to approach me and ask me a question, as it stands now, I'm trying to respond and get answers out to anybody. So if Commissioner Taylor would ask me a question, I want to be able to answer that question. If it's pertaining to legal, if Chief of Police Panzarella were to ask me a question, I've been able to respond. If he were to ask me a question, I would respond. And so without any sort of, generically speaking, there are no set in stone rules throughout our state.
Right.
And so I work at y'all's pleasure, the board, the mayor, CEO, et cetera, and I'll do whatever it is you guys ask me. If you guys have a set of rules, and once I'm aware of what those rules are, I work in the rule world. And so once you tell me what the rules are, I'll follow them. And so hypothetically, if the town clerk were to ask me a question and she's not part of those rules, I'll say, hey, Mr. CEO or Mr. Mayor, I've been asked a question by the clerk. Do you want to give me permission to answer it, or do you want to address it? And so I'm happy to do whatever you guys want me to do. I work at your pleasure. I was hired at your pleasure, and so I'll continue to do as y'all wish. Just, I guess, 3 months that I've started here, I was never given a set of rules. I don't know if there ever was a set of rules, and if we can get a set of rules, I'd be happy, and if not, I'll continue to answer the questions.
It would make your job a lot easier, yeah.
My life would always be easier with a set of rules. If I had 4 corners on a piece of paper to live by, I could definitely sort of live my life. But it's at the board's pleasure, and that you guys can change the rules anytime you want, and I'll follow them.
This is what came to mind to me when I was thinking about this today. 3 commissioners can't get together, sunshine law. 2 commissioners have to request to the mayor. Mayor makes the decision to ask manager, because there is a lot of information that the manager knows that could keep us from having to spend taxpayers' money to get a question answered.
And there's a
That
lot
way
of
it's not
information
one
the
single
clerk can
person.
find.
Would it be possible to know at the point of the question whether it's going to be more than an hour's worth of effort? The reason I get the point of not wanting to rack up a bill, chasing down things that we could find an answer somewhere else cheaper or faster. But I also want to preserve our ability to reach out and ask advice from counsel, which you go to all the training that they give you and it always says, oh, ask your town attorney. Well, I know that we don't have 5 of us lined up asking them questions at $200 an hour. But I like your approach. You phone a friend, put 2 commissioners' heads together and talk to the mayor. Guess what? We might have an answer by the time we put those 3 heads together. And if not, then we go through the process and pitch it to
Not one of us can get
Tommy.
something
No,
done.
not one person can
It takes 3
approach
of us
the
to get
attorney.
anything done. So it needs to be at least 3 people to phone a friend. And I'm not sure under sunshine law that us 3 could get together and have a conversation to ask you a question.
No, it would have to be
So
individually.
therefore, the mayor would have to be the 3rd point of contact on that.
I think that's the easy button to get around the sunshine limitation of congregating or conversing about town business.
And that way, it goes to the mayor, who would obviously approach the manager or CEO, and between he and the clerk, most often, the answers are going to be readily available.
Now, with that said, all of us on this board have other jobs.
Yes.
So manager, clerk, they have open availability to the town attorney.
Mhm.
They don't need permission
They don't
or
need
a
permission
request
from
to
us.
ask a question. They can fire at will. But for us up here to make a decision to spend taxpayers' money, I think there needs to be 3 people.
Because we're all supposed to be acting as a team up here anyway, so.
We're one.
Yeah, we
We're
look like
one to make up, we're a group of 5 to make up a vote of 1.
one question. Yeah, I agree.
And I think that Matt, as a CEO, can work with his department heads. I sincerely doubt that any of the department heads are going to the attorney without Matt's consent, as it is.
So that's a policy for us?
Yes, that was my understanding.
That was established. So if a department head needs to have an ask, it's always through my office or this chair, not me, but it's through this chair because we want to be able to track it. So whether it's coming out of PD, fire, planning, and we're 99% of the time always in agreement that, yeah, we need to have that help and thank you for doing that. And
Yes, because of
so
potential liabilities.
if we, in the conversation I think I've had with Carolina Law Group is, if we can answer it at our level, we answer. We only phone them when we need them.
Exactly.
And we're relying on their expertise to give us a clear, concise decision because we might be at a fork in the road and we want to take the road least liable. And that's when we're calling. So we're leaning to them as necessary, and I would think the clerk would concur with that.
So we need a motion.
Go, Josh.
All right.
Now, I do want to comment that on the flip side of that, though, if there's a genuine legal concern and, I mean, and then if for whatever reason,
where it goes through the funnel there, through the bottleneck, and the answer is, no, you can't contact the attorney, or we're not gonna contact the attorney. I mean, but what if it's a legitimate question that needs legal guidance and legal counsel on it?
I think this sounds like something that might be better to write down and agree on, as opposed to trying to capture it in a motion, as we saw on our most recent motion.
Oh, I can capture it pretty well.
Kind of hard to string the right words together sitting right
Josh has
here.
got it.
But I think the principles are phone a friend, and the idea is to answer all the questions we can amongst ourselves using our own town resources first. I think, to Roy's point, it's important to not eliminate anybody's ability to seek legal counsel when they feel like they need it, because there, like I said, there's a lot of cases where something comes up. That's what you got to do.
That's why you're having the checks and balances of phoning a friend and then going through the mayor and then the CEO. I mean, because it's a priority for me, doesn't mean it's a priority for Jay, doesn't mean it's a priority.
What if it's about the mayor?
Well, we're all adults. We're all adults. Hey, we're all adults.
I see something else too, like if I contact Wooten and Brownlow and say, or I can't contact, because it's two of them, so I can only contact, so say me and Wooten go to the mayor and say, hey, I want to talk to legal about such and such, and then mayor says no, then I go to you two, I go to one of you and say, hey, I want to talk to him about it, and then if there's three of us come to the mayor at the same time.
Sunshine.
Yeah, so see, you can't do it, so it's gotta be the way that you're explaining it, Jay. I mean, you're explaining it, Josh.
I don't mean to insert myself here as the subservient to you, but I would share with you, having seen this in the past, the way it can work.
Yeah.
You're talking about a hypothetical where there might be a roadblock. You already have an out there.
Yes.
So what you're trying to say is, this group of 6 is trying to determine how you would communicate to control your costs. We, on the staff side, have a policy process of up and through. And so if 2 elected officials and the mayor have a conversation about researching X project or X topic or X ordinance, and the mayor and you 3 can't agree, you can always bring that conversation to the next available board meeting and then say, I feel it's important that the town researches this, and if you get a vote of 3-2, then you're authorizing your entity to expend those funds, and that's a checks and balance. So however you want to do it, but what we're doing on our end is I'm serving the staff, and I have to make a decision, because if I'm going to elevate that up and have research done, you're going to hold me accountable, right? And so you're trying to figure out accountability on your side. So what we're doing on our side is it funnels through that singular point. We come to concurrence, we elevate it up, and we've got pretty responsive conversations. So on your end, however you choose to do it, but I've seen it work that way in the past, where 2 seated commissioners and the mayor can come to concurrence, you move it forward, and if you can't, you always can bring it to a vote.
So,
I know when we were doing the interviews to hire a town attorney, Jay, Commissioner Wooten specifically asked that question of each attorney we were interviewing about who contacts you. And one lawyer firm even said that it was uncommon, if it was just a mayor to contact you, it would be uncommon. That would not be typical. And I think all that we interviewed had the same answer, that
that one single person contacting them wouldn't be normal.
well, no, they said that usually any member of the board can contact them. And that was I wrote down, Commissioner Wooten specifically asked that question, and that was the response from each.
I don't think one commissioner should be able to make the decision to spend taxpayers' money without other commissioners having a say-so of that.
We're holding Matt accountable, but we're spending the taxpayers' money, so they're holding us accountable. We owe them the same thing.
I mean, there's things that I've seen in the bill that I knew nothing about the question.
Until I saw the bill.
Until I saw the bill. And that's one commissioner
Likewise.
making that decision. There's got to be a checks and balance. I like to make a motion that 2 commissioners must go to the mayor to seek legal counsel.
All right, motion is on the floor by Commissioner Sawyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Motion is
I
carried
would like
3-2.
I would just like to say, I would prefer that we write that down as a process or a procedure and agree on it as opposed to.
We just agreed on it.
Well, okay,
It's in the minutes.
all right.
We request somebody,
Can I help Mr. Wooten?
sorry?
We have a procedures.
That's what I'm saying. I would like to see it written down and then.
Should
we'll
we
vote on
add it,
that.
should we add it to the procedures list, which we can easily do? I think the procedure has 31 or more items on there, and that could be a procedure that this board would like to see your group follow. And you can always change it or adjust it. It's rules of procedure for your elected
Yeah.
body.
I have no objection to that.
No objection.
So we can rewrite that and bring it forward for concurrence.
Rewrite it with the addition of,
With that direction.
correct.
Gladly do that.
All right, thank you all. Item 16, comments from town clerk. Mr. Zapp?
Yes, sir. So you should have in front of you a copy of an email that was sent on Monday evening at 6:15. And what you should have before you is the Bogue Sound Court. The subject of the email that you received said vote requested on October 8th. And there's been a lot of conversation surrounding 5002 and 5004 Bogue Sound Court. We have a CAMA permit that has since been received. I think it was either Thursday or Friday, and it was forwarded out to this team. I went out to you Thursday at 10 a.m., and then we sent out another one here Monday night at the 7th, just confirming. So before we invest and move forward, I want to make sure that the town board is comfortable with the proposed drainage easement that we have secured from 5002, Mr. J. and Charlotte Davis, and that we would put in a swale, and it would involve the lowering of the seawall or the head wall at a necessary depth of 18 to 24 inches based on the field verification from the end of the cul-de-sac to the head wall, allowing the water to drain out. If there's any questions, we'll answer them. The drawing and the scope of details is included in the CAMLA application packet, and that would be in the email placed at your desk before we, as a staff, take any action.
Mr. Mayor and council, I think this is another case where I have to recuse myself. One of the residents involved in this is the client of Tidewater Associates where I work, and I've provided consultation to this client on this matter, so.
Make a motion to recuse Commissioner Brownlow from this item of discussion.
All right, Mr. Sanderson made that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion's carried.
I've probably seen 45, 50 emails on this very property and the adjacent property. And it sounds like we have a solution finally that we can move forward with that may put this thing to bed and resolve everyone's issues. And I would like nothing more. Therefore, I make a motion that we approve the proposed improvements and the funding necessary.
All right, just to make sure I didn't miss anything there, and thank you for the motion. Does anybody, I know Commissioner Brownlow's recused
Do we know
himself.
what the funding necessary is?
I just wanted to,
Not a lot, right?
It's not a lot.
I actually visited the property this morning.
And I visited 4 days ago. Yeah.
I don't think it'd be a lot.
Yeah.
okay. All right, just want to make sure.
All right.
So a lot is an ambiguous term, and I'd like
Yes.
to answer Mr. Wooten's question. Some to some is a lot, a little to some is a lot. So what we can do is with either forced account labor or a minor contract, enhance the swale, which means create a depression with higher at the cul-de-sac, lower at the wall. But we as a staff cannot, we don't have the tools and and the skill set to adjust the wall, and we would have to utilize an outside firm, at which time we'll get 2 to 3 prices. And there's already, I think, a conversation of I signed a adjacent property owner contract for an enhancement of a wall at 5,005 today, so we were going to ask them. We were going to contact C3, who I think did the original work, and just making the minor reduction in the wall, which you'll see in the drawing, is something that we'd have to use a contractor for.
Sure.
We don't have that exact estimate. Again, not thousands and thousands of dollars, but it may be an outside push.
All right. Commissioner Sanderson has the motion on the floor to allow staff to proceed. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
I make a motion to bring Commissioner Brownlow back into the meeting.
We have to vote on that?
Yeah, actually, we do. Aye.
Motion's,
Aye, yes.
motion's carried.
I neglected to do that earlier.
Motion is carried. All right. Any other comments from you, Matt? All right.
Sure, I apologize. For those that are remaining in the audience, there's a physical printed copy stapled to the manager's report at the desk. If you'd like to stay up to speed on the happenings in EI, we're going to try to provide you that each and every month.
Thanks, sir. All right. Any comments from our town attorney?
No, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Commissioner Sanderson?
I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all of those, some in the audience, one sitting right beside me, one over here in our staff, who have been helping out with all those affected by the hurricane, and we really appreciate you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Sawyer?
I'd just like to say to everybody watching here, in what Commissioner Sanders said, Paul Mosco's doing great things, Salty Pirate. If you got anything those people need, bare necessities that you look at every day. It's amazing what somebody out there right now will do for a bottle of water that doesn't have it. Baby diapers, baby wipes, Band-Aids, aspirin, anything, it all adds up. So a little bottle here from 10 people helps, it goes a long way, and that stuff is getting out there. The amount of stuff that people are dropping off is actually kind of heartwarming. I know we're taking donations at the community center, Village Market, Salty Pirate, so anything helps. Thank you, guys.
The Real Outdoors is doing the coats, right?
Yeah, we're doing that there, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Brownlow?
I have no comments at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Wooten?
No, I'll just echo appreciate everybody pitching in to help out as we can. I know we've been on the receiving end of that help, and it really is important to have the opportunity to contribute back. So thank you to everybody that's helping out with that. And foot stomp to welcome back Tony. He really helped me out this week, so I'm glad he's back full time.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, ditto to all the people that's helped out. It made me proud being a East Carolina resident out here and what people's done in our community. I know a lot of you are on Facebook and stuff, and it's just amazing to see how people reached out, because it was 4 or 5 years ago we were all dealing with Florence, and so we know how it is to be on the other side of it. So people like Paul, like Josh, and everyone that's out here has been doing it. It's amazing. It makes you proud just to say our home's doing what you're doing. So thanks a lot. Thanks for all the support for the in-water fishing tournament, what the town did for us, and the people that volunteered and stuff. I can happily say there's going to be scholarships again next year. It was a great success. So thank you on all that part, and there'll be some numbers down the road. We can tell you more about it, but thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I'm proud of everybody that has stepped up to help our friends out west. It's, like I said, I've talked with a lot of people, and until you see it in person, you really can't quantify it. And like Josh said, you'd be amazed what some people would even do for a bottle of water right now. It makes you feel really good that you've got people help that have giving hearts and willing hearts. Our 4 VI's finest firefighters deployed out there. Our residents, our business owners, restaurant owners, everybody. It puts a lot of things in perspective, and I'm grateful for everybody and pray for those people every day. That's all I have to say.
I had one more thing.
Yes.
Mayor Holland?
Yes.
I'm glad that we have staff going out to support with this mutual aid agreement that we have because of all the people who come in to help us. One thing that we need to remember with Western North Carolina, a lot of those areas are unincorporated. They don't have any professional guidance on FEMA-related issues and how to rebuild their communities and their infrastructure and things of that nature. And I'd just like to see the town, make sure the town staff knows they have my full support.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, that'll do it for the open session. Need that motion to go into closed session.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into a closed session pursuant to code 143-318.11A6.
Commissioner Wooten has the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion is carried.